Joining me now is Christopher Wimmer. And Christopher, I'm going to read your title.
Okay, very good.
Because, I can memorize stuff, but Canadian Consul, Senior Trade Commissioner, and Head of Investment in New York City, Canadian Consulate General, correct?
That works.
All right, very good. So maybe you could describe your role in terms of attracting U.S. investment and overseas investment to the Canadian critical minerals sector, and just a general overview of what you do.
Yeah, sure. So in New York, we have a team I lead in FDI attraction. I guess confusing for some people sometimes. I just used to put head of investment because I thought I was giving people money. But no, we're trying to attract capital and investment into Canada. And that could be anywhere from into junior mining projects from, private equity firms or investment banks or other investors around the world. Or that could be into the downstream supply chain for batteries or renewable energy or semiconductors and chips or other sort of industries that utilize the critical minerals.
Now, you've talked before about advancing partnerships with other countries, Japan, South Korea, the EU. Would you say that these investments and subsidies that we've seen in Canada for battery makers and major OEMs, is that a good example of that?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're trying to focus a bit more as well on the upstream as well to support some of our mining companies, our junior mining projects, and some of the processing and the other pieces of the puzzle. Certainly, we've seen in recent years the investments in Canada, particularly in Ontario, Quebec, in that sort of battery downstream, whether it be the most recent sort of Honda investment or Volkswagen, Kia Stellantis, Northvolt. There's been a variety of them throughout the region. But now looking at other industries as well, as we know that there are industries like I mentioned before, like whether it's renewable energies or aerospace or even some of the traditional industries that always utilize what we call critical minerals now, which was previously just base metals. But I think that some of the subsidies, tax credits, these sorts of things are looking to help bring that investment in and work towards ultimately a greater goal of energy transition, where we're looking to sort of greenify industry, transportation, logistics, and the rest of it. Yeah.
When you look at the U.S. market, you said it's important not to look at it as just some homogeneous country, but to look at it regionally in terms of supply chain pockets. So the Northeast, the Southwest, correct? Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. So, borders in North America, certainly we have three of them, or two of them, I guess, as it were, between Canada and U.S. and Mexico. But regions span across borders. So whether you look at the traditional auto industry in sort of the northeastern part of North America, there's always been an interconnection between provinces and states along the border, whether it's making auto parts or cars. And now we look at sort of the rest of the supply chain for EVs, for batteries, for other industries. And certainly that collaboration has always existed, but we need to continue that sort of integration and focus on our strengths, because we don't necessarily need to do everything in one place. And U.S. being such a strong partner for us on a variety of fronts, from national security to other forms of international cooperation, but certainly in next generation technologies and industries and manufacturing. We'll look to where best to sort of place that, and sometimes that is regional. You look at even what we're starting to do in the semiconductors and chips field, and there's sort of a corridor running up from New York into sort of Quebec and Ontario, and it's fruitful for that collaboration because different regions have different advantages. So I think throughout the U.S., you're also seeing, like I said, pockets in the Southwest and the Southeast and the Northeast that are starting to come online to produce some of these downstream industries like EVs, like batteries, like chips, and the other parts of it. And this is, of course, part of the greater onshoring that they're trying to do in the U.S. to bring sort of that advanced manufacturing back, but also to strengthen what already exists. So, sometimes we hear discussions about onshoring technology from Asia and that sort of thing, but it's not just the onshore, but also some of these technologies are sort of groundbreaking technologies that perhaps didn't exist anywhere. And we're going to see more of that going forward, and we're going to see new jobs created for these industries. I think some of the concern from some of the traditional industries, whether it be oil and gas or other parts, are that, these new jobs are going to sort of include the traditional engineers or pipe fitters or whatever, but there's going to be new and higher paying jobs in these next generation industries. And I think that's going to create opportunities in North America and give us more strength ultimately.
All right, interesting. Now, you mentioned investment bankers. So when you're talking to an investment banker or somebody or some entity that's interested in Canada's critical mineral industry, and they're looking to write some big checks, they're interested. What's hot right now? What are they looking for? Is it lithium? Is it copper? Is it? Can you narrow that down or not really?
I can. I hate to do it because there's so many great projects out there, and these things shifts so regularly. I mean, certainly at the moment, graphite and copper have gotten a bit of a push, and you can see that as well in some of the precious metals. Gold is up. Some of the other metals aren't doing as well, but we expect that they'll come back because it is, a business cycle, and they're needed. There's a reason why they were put on the critical mineral list. I think ultimately what investment bankers are looking for is some predictability in the permitting process. And we've obviously announced that we're going to try to shorten that permitting process down to 5 years in Canada, which is a great announcement by Minister Wilkinson. And beyond that, just a great environment where you've done your community engagement, you have a good relationship with the immediate community, you understand the profitability of the project, the logistics, and how it'll come out. I mean, something interesting that happened most recently, only in the last week or so, there was an announcement that the US DOD and Natural Resource Canada co-investing in 2 projects. I think you probably saw with Fortune Minerals and Lamico. That's a great announcement. It's a step forward to see what I think Wall Street and other financial capitals wanted to see, which is government getting behind what they've been trying to promote. So we've obviously had a critical mineral strategy in Canada in the last few years. And of course, industry is always like, well, we want the government also to stand behind that. And I think the most recent announcement is a demonstration of U.S.-Canada cooperation, and the government is getting behind the projects.
We're talking to Lamico later on today.
That was great.
So, yeah. And just last question for you. You've had similar roles in Argentina and Istanbul over the years. So New York City now for several years. Can you compare and contrast those, cultures and your roles there, and how they're different and similar?
Yeah, of course. And obviously, I like to think I brought some of the experience from those roles now, so I'm probably more knowledgeable than I was back in Argentina in 2011, 2014. But in those regions, I tried to support Canadian mining projects within those countries for the most part. So when they were looking for their permitting, when they were having issues locally, whether with royalties or whatever, when they were looking for inputs and it was difficult to source. So I was trying to help Canadian mining projects abroad, and to some extent now I'm trying to attract in the US and in my role in New York, investment into those mining projects. And now that we're doing it in Canada, we're the country that gives the permits and does the regulation and provides the environment for mining. So and certainly we have some of the highest standards in the world when it comes to ESG and when it comes to sort of the permitting process that we're trying to accelerate. So it's different in the sense that now I'm helping more junior mining projects get access to that capital, get access to the financing they need to move into production. Versus abroad, it was more helping Canadian mining projects abroad in foreign countries and trying to demonstrate that we all need to meet international standards for environmentalism and to keep the industry as green as possible, and also try to advocate for some transparency in the permitting process, whether that was in Argentina or in Turkey. And certainly, it was a different environment. I mean, there are different cultures, there are different experiences in mining, different levels of technology, but it all was very fruitful because some of the connections I've made in the last couple of years being in New York have come from some of my old contacts I made. So I called up some old Canadian mining CEOs and I said, hey, look, I'm in New York. Can you help me out, connect me with the right people here? And they certainly did. And I have wonderful connections and a network in New York now that I can utilize thanks to sort of some of my prior work in mining.
Right, that's great. Well, thanks for shedding some light on what you do. It's fascinating stuff.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, good stuff. Christopher Wimmer.